Hello everybody, welcome to this week's Dissecting Design. We are going to be taking a look at Resident Evil 7 now that I've finished the game. Now, Resident Evil 7 was highly touted before its release thanks to the amazing demo and campaign Capcom did, and then afterwards by a lot of people heralding it as the return of the Resident Evil franchise. But after playing through it, I don't think this game is a pure survival horror game. And I know that may seem very weird describing Resident Evil 7, but there are some key aspects of this game that I think that the game does not sustain well over the period of the entire game. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Now, keep in mind before I begin, anything that I'm going to show you or anything that we're going to talk about is spoiler related, so don't watch this if you haven't played the game or intend to do so. But we're going to load up the opening chapter. We're going to try and skip back and forth between some of the early parts of the game and just to discuss it. So up next, we're going to talk about the opening scene and probably one of the strongest aspects of Resident Evil 7. Alright, welcome back everybody. We're now in the opening scene. I skipped past the first cutscene. I'm going to try and skip past them where I can just to save us some time. But Resident Evil 7, as you can tell right off the bat, mixes things up by switching to a first-person view. And really shows off the new engine. And what we're about to see in the next minute and a half is one of the game's strongest aspects. And that is the environmental storytelling, as we wander our way through the backwoods of Louisiana. But as we head over here, there is Jack, one of the main antagonists of Resident Evil 7, and a major part, what makes the first, I would say maybe hour to 2 hours, if it's your first time playing, so memorable. But let's pass the disturbing stuff here. And we'll get to the opening house. Now, for people who played through the demo, this is what we got to experience when we first played the Resident Evil 7 experience. And Resident Evil 7 definitely shows as a combination of old and new aspects of horror design. The first-person view and just general disturbing nature of the environments is a major part of what we saw from the independent scene, with games like Outlast, Slender Man, and so on. Now, we are in the house now, and look at the detail of this place. This is a prime example of environmental storytelling. You can see the whole place is disheveled. No one looks like they've been here for years. But it still looks like an actual home. And that's a major part of this. There's bathrooms, there's bedrooms, there's stuff like that. This doesn't feel like a case of the developer just throwing a bunch of things around and then calling it a home. And this is where the inspiration from independent horror comes in. It's a lot slower of an experience as we're exploring around. Now, one of the other interesting aspects that Resident Evil 7 does for its storytelling are these cassette tapes. They're basically interactable cutscenes that we're not going to show off in this dissection just because it will add a lot more time to it. But the idea is that we're essentially living the cassette tape, or living what's happening in the footage, and using that to learn about what's happening or get advance warning. Again, the detail is really great in this game, and it adds an unusual factor to Resident Evil 7 that's not in previous games. And that's the fact that you really do have to search the environment for goodies. It's not like old games where you could see like a herb would be placed like right here, or every table would have handgun ammo. Instead, there could be stuff under tables. We even have like little stuff right here. And there's a bunch of collectibles and bonus things to do. Now, if I watch the videotape, we learn that there is a shortcut or a secret passage right here. Let's open this up. And voila. head down here. Again, the detail just adds so much to Resident Evil 7. And I know a lot of people... Oh, 1 second. There we go. A lot of people really love the VR experience for Resident Evil 7. Sadly, I don't have a PS Move or anything like that, so we won't be able to show that off here. But again, so much about what's happening in this game can be read by the environment. And this is a major part of environmental storytelling. When you focus on this right, it creates very deep game spaces, wherein there's just a lot to explore and find out. But it's still kept unique. Each area is its own separate entity. It's not like I'm going to run into 5 different rooms that all look alike. Now, we're about to get a little bit of some gross factor here, folks, so heads up. Oop. There we go. Sorry, buddy. We don't have time for you. We're trying to make a video here. We're going into another little area here. Now, movement is obviously entirely built around first-person perspective and camera. We can do a quick 180 turn, crouch, and we have our very, very slow run. Mia is, of course, our main character, Ethan's wife, who we're trying to discover and figure out where she's been for the last 3 years. Again, really great detail as to what's happening around us. Now, with that said, I'm going to cut things here, and we're going to fast forward to right into our first interaction with the Bakers, and we're going to talk about what the Bakers add to the experience, and how things are really set up at the start. Alright, it's a little bit further into the beginning of the game, and we're about to meet the Bakers for real. Now, the Baker family of Marguerite, Jack, Lucas, and Granny over here was one of the more polarizing shifts of Resident Evil 7 compared to other games. The family, it's basically like our own personal Texas Chainsaw Massacre family here. We're trapped in their home, and they're going to actively stalk us around. Once again, the environmental detail is amazing, and really adds to the game. Now, as I said in the last part, a lot of it is about exploring the environment, trying to find ammo, items, and so on. And that's one of the major parts about Resident Evil 7, is that you're going to have to find items while you're being engaged by them. Now, the thing is, being stalked by Jack, that we're going to see in the next minute, it's okay, but it is still limited by the design of the game. Namely, that he will only engage you in specific areas, and he will only go so far. But again, we can see just how much things have degraded in this household since the family went evil on us. Again, various items we can find in the environment. And what's surprising is that at the start of Resident Evil 7, or at least in this part of it, it is more stealth than it is action. As we have no weapons, and even the weapons we do find cannot hurt Jack. Again, still some random things around. That's for a lockpick. So now Jack is going to show up at the end of this hallway. There he is. And the idea is we need to grab his key. Oh, music's picking up. And use it at that hatch. Here he comes. Now, if I was playing this on the hard difficulty... Oh, hold on. There you are.
Before dinner was done.
Oh. I'm trying is I'll probably break that wall down. Where are you, Jack? Jack, where are you? There you are.
You're wasting your time.
Ooh, not good.
You came to the wrong house, boy.
Out of my way. Uh-oh. This is gonna hurt. Ow. We need to get that leg back. There we go. And the magical cure. We never really explained how this works, but it does.
What the fuck?
Exactly, Ethan.
Daddy.
Okay, Daddy. Later, Daddy.
All right. Have fun in there, boy. I'm gonna come back for you later.
Alright. So, as you can tell, that was a very exciting turn for the game, and definitely a very sharp departure from previous Resident Evil games. Now, we're going to play a little bit longer passively until we get access to our first weapon. That's going to be both a knife and a handgun. Here's our first little save room. A major part of the game is looking for items that we can then either craft or combine with. There's some dirty socks. Here's my inventory. Because I already beat the game, I get a few other items to start with. There we go. So we can combine these into first aid medicine. We can also craft better bullets later on. That's going to do that. And this is... let's see, I think her name...
Good, Ethan.
Zoe, right?
Zoe, there we go. Thank you.
Fuck are you?
Shut up and listen if you want to stay alive. You gotta get out of that house. There might be a way out through the main hall.
All right.
Oh, and that thing on your wrist is a codex. Don't lose it. It's important.
But now Jack is gone, at least for the short term.
Hell of a girl.
And he does essentially become the alpha antagonist for this start of the game. I just picked up a lockpick, which I can use right here. There you go, more medicine. But in this first quarter of the game, Jack will be stalking you in specific parts after you basically pass certain triggers. And the challenge is trying to figure out... the guy should be coming to the window now. Where are you, buddy? Is trying to solve the puzzles and find the items you need while actively avoiding Jack. There he is. So what I'm going to do is we're going to cut forward a little bit further. I'm going to beat the first boss, and we'll talk a little bit more about the general combat of Resident Evil 7 next. Welcome back, everybody. I just beat the first, I guess, quote-unquote boss of the game, and now we're in the central hub of the first act. And we can talk a little bit more about the general gameplay of RE7 here. So, the focus of it, that phone's just going to keep ringing until I pass the trigger. The focus at this point is trying to figure out how to get out of this area. Now, we've already saw Jack stalk around, and he'll make another appearance in a few minutes. But at this point, our primary goal is to get to the next spot where we'll get some more items, and we're going to encounter the game's general enemies. These are Resident Evil 7's versions of the zombies. In this case, it's called the Molded. Now, the items are also randomly placed as well. don't want to go in there just yet. That's the actual trigger for Jack to show up. In the meanwhile, I'm just going to quickly go look around for some items. Here's another cassette tape. Again, the game does a really good job of hiding items in plain sight. Whether it's in these little drawers, inside trash cans, or even just like around the corners of places. Nope, that doesn't help me at all. There's another antique coin. Here's a little bobblehead collectible to break. There's a shotgun that we can hopefully get at some point. And we'll probably show it off in this video as well. But that's everything that I need up here for right now. I don't think I can go into the kids' room just yet. I think that door is still locked. But we're about to get another trigger going. And the idea is we're going to have to sneak around to complete this next challenge while Jack is hunting us. But first, I'm going to grab some more ammo. Coin in the toilet there. And we'll run straight to the left. Alright, time to say hi. Hi, Jack.
Heck of a thing, ain't it? Sure shit beats the hell out of dying. My little girl has given us a gift. And
Hello,
this
Jack.
gift is with me always.
Hi, Jack, and bye, Jack.
As you can see, the family is only part of her gift. Which in a word,
No, I went the wrong way, actually.
you're fucked.
I need to drop down. And that should lose him. Or at least give us some distance. Oh, he is following me. Man. Jack is being persistent tonight, isn't he? There's our other shotgun.
Hello there. How you been?
Jeez. But again, this is technically the best part of Resident Evil 7, is being hunted. But this should lose him. Now, if we're playing this on Madhouse, it would be even harder. Alright. He is around, so I'm going to quickly and hopefully do this fast. Come on. It's not good when you're trying to be speedy and you're trying to put together a video at the same time. There we go. We're about to run into, again, the general enemy of Resident Evil 7. That's going to be in this next little spot.
Who builds this shit?
But first, I'm going to drop this off here. Wait, did I not pick it up? Oh, I must have missed it, but that's alright. Because eventually I will be able to defeat Jack in the long term, and we can then explore fully. But, for right now, we're going to move away from the alpha antagonists and get to the general enemies. And that's going to be in this next little spot. Again, take note of how items are hidden all over the place. Herbs, bullets, and there's even an item that's designed to help you find them. Ooh. Quiet, you. More chem fluid. There you go. The game's being generous with handgun bullets, thankfully. But I'm going to use this. And we're about to fight. And yes, there are lockpicks hidden around. Oh, did you hear that, folks? Nothing in there. Gunpowder we can use to craft better bullets. But here is the game's first of many generic enemies. I'm going to heal you just to be on the safe side. And that is the Molded. Technically, I don't have to fight him. I can actually just run. But I'm going to show them all. These amorphous-looking creatures can only be killed by popping their heads or destroying the body. There you go, you're done. And that is not going to be the last we're going to see of those guys, as we're about to get into a whole mess of them in this next area. But let me just quickly drop things off here. We don't have a shotgun yet, so unfortunately I can't use it. Let's see, there's our save point. We need a lockpick for that. And more handgun bullets. Once we get our hands on the shotgun, life becomes a lot easier. And that is actually one of the major complaints I have about Resident Evil 7. But we'll talk about that in our next section. But for now, we're going to fight a few more Molded and show that off. Alright. Should be one coming around the corner. Where are you? There you are. A little counter block there. And blocking is a serious mechanic in Resident Evil 7. The amount of damage that gets mitigated is insane. There's a guy in there. They will not break through doors, but you can also despawn them if you know where the triggers are. Now the reason why we go this way is that there's more goodies. And we get the key that will allow us access to the shotgun. And the shotgun, like I said, is a very big deal, because we can one-shot most enemies with it. So let me just grab some more stuff here. And now there's a few more items down here. But the gameplay... Oh, more bullets, that's great. But the the gameplay of Resident Evil 7 is still very much action-oriented. Yes, we are very slow, but we're still going to have the means of fighting these enemies. Now that is going to spawn another enemy. I'm going to heal up there. I can just use that. He should be dropping down from the ceiling. There you go. Now I just missed. There you go. Gotcha. But let's just take a quick look at these guys. Again, there's detail, but there's not. These enemies all look alike. They lack any kind of visible or distinctive elements to them compared to the zombies or the Lost Plaga in previous Resident Evil games. Now we got the key here, we got the lockpick. Now they're gonna spawn. There you go. There's a way I know speedrunners can despawn these guys, but I'm not that good at this game yet to be able to do that. But these enemies tend to track you. He's still back there. You leaving yet, buddy? Alright, you know what? Let's just pop him. Or we'll try and pop him. Again, at the start, you're still in this very weak horror style phase. but it does not last all that long. There you go, he just despawned. And I can now just run right there. And the reason why you don't go that way, or you come up here after that, first we have the lockpick. I can use that here. The treasure photo that we found will help us. But we're going to get what we need in order to use the shotgun. And you're going to see a huge difference in terms of our power once we get it. Now, the downside is that we're going to be dealing with Jack. But Jack does not come past this route. Now, enemies will respawn after specific events, but it is fixed. They will never just like pop up out of the blue. So that treasure fill I found tells us about a secret right here. Steroids act as the game's upgrade. So now comes the annoying part. I'm going to have to be chased by Jack in order to get the shotgun. And the thing is, it's such a big deal to help, and will help you out. So now I need to pay attention. If he does chase after me, I can actually just run back through the scorpion door, and he will disengage. So where is he? I hear him. And again,
This is all too fun.
he will usually track you to some extent. Alright, very important. Where are you? The important thing was just getting that broken shotgun. Because now, after I drop this off here, so we have room, we'll have our real shotgun. And then basically, all of our worries disappear. Uh-oh. Apparently, got a spawn trigger here. He can't come in here, by the way. If he does decide to do that, we'll just drop down there and we'll be safe. Jack is being very persistent for our dissecting design, and that's actually good, because it represents again the better parts of Resident Evil 7's gameplay. But sadly, it's not going to last for long.
It won't be long before I find you and kill you.
Yeah, I know. But now, we're going to stop being scared. The broken shotgun is actually the best weapon in the game once we complete the first part. Now, technically, I didn't need to do all that to get the shotgun, but you're going to see why we go for the shotgun. And when we get enough bullets or enough shells for the shotgun, we basically don't have to worry about anything. So now I'm gonna come over here. Now the enemy may spawn. Are you still in here? Okay. he despawned, but he may just pop back. There you are. Hi, guy. Bye, guy. Oh, his little head didn't pop. There we go. Once we get the upgraded shotgun, it's usually one-hit kill to the head. Now we're going to piss this guy off. But we're going to despawn him. So we don't have to worry about him anymore. But I'm going to cut this part here. I'm going to do some more shotgun action. And we're going to pick up after the games. Or actually, we'll pick up after the boss fight. And I want to talk about some of the issues I have with Resident Evil 7's combat system next. Alright, welcome back. I just finished the Jack off a second time, which is pretty much the end of Jack for the majority of the game. I want to talk about some of the issues I have with Resident Evil 7 now. Now, so far, the game itself tries to present itself as survival horror, but I don't think that is necessarily the case. I think this is just a really strong example of a slow action horror game. At this point, I have my shotgun, which means that a lot of the threats, if anything, aren't really going to be bothering us. We have free reign of the house, because of all the triggers have been dealt with. And the game really doesn't do a good job, I think, of representing survival horror. Now, when I talk about survival horror, I always bring up the talk Frederick Renell did, who's the creator of Alone in the Dark. And in that game, or in that talk, he talked about how he wanted to create a game that combined the puzzle-solving and exploration of adventure games with having combat and fighting of action games. But both elements had to be present. The enemies couldn't just be bullet sponges. You had to actually think about how to engage them. And the adventure elements were there to give you these puzzles that you had to solve. Oh, there's Granny again. But at this point, though, or throughout Resident Evil 7, there really isn't that focus of puzzle solving. There is exploration, yes, but there really aren't too many parts that actually make you think. Chances are, for most people who play through the game, you'll probably turn to the Lucas sections that come out near about the halfway point as the primary example. But most of the quote-unquote puzzles are just simply use what's nearby, open the door, move on. So at this point, I am basically done with Jack, so I can explore this whole place and not have to worry about anything. We could look around for more items if we wanted to. Again, this is where we got the shotgun. Let's see, can I actually combine? Yeah, we can combine. Now, we're about to find... Oh, we're getting really lucky with shotgun bullets, too. Or shotgun shells. We're about to find one of the key aspects that really downplay the terror of Resident Evil 7. That's enhanced bullets and our super shotgun, or I guess quote-unquote super shotgun. But first, to do that, we need to head over here. And we're basically done with the game's major hub. And now we're outside. We're actually also done fighting the molded for quite a bit. There's bug enemies next, but they're just more of a nuisance rather than a legitimate fight. So what we do down here is we get one of two repair kits. Now this is kind of like our new little safe zone right here. And we can trade those antique coins. There we go. That just triggers that. 4 goodies here.
You made it. You're the first I've ever seen.
Zoe here is just going to talk a little
So
bit.
what is it you need me to do? Is it gonna help me get out of here?
Yes. Now listen
But I gotta wait for her to
carefully.
finish her little speech.
My family and I, our bodies are contaminated. I can't leave the property unless I get it out. And the same goes for Mia.
Is there a way to get it out?
And while she is talking, I'm going to actually just talk over her. Resident Evil 7 gets more and more linear as the game goes on.
So where is it?
If I knew where one was, I'd already be
Yeah.
gone. But I have a feeling my mother
And the
has
next
hidden some
part
inside the old
gets
house
even
somewhere.
more and more constrained, as there's only one real way to progress. And the problems with Resident Evil 7 begin to rear their head as we get further in.
You can't miss it.
The emphasis on combat,
I just hope you can
like
find
the
my mother.
developers want to try and have their cake and eat it too. They want to make you scared, they want the exploration, but they still want you to do a lot of fighting. And the majority of this game is built around combat. In fact, all the upgrades we find facilitate that. Steroids increase our health, stabilizers to improve our reload speed, enhanced guns. I think there's a broken handgun on the bed there. But what I'm going to do now is we're going to trade our normal shotgun for an even better shotgun. So I'm going to head over here. And again, I don't have to worry about any more enemies for the foreseeable future. Oop, did I accidentally just pick that up? Oh, and there's one other thing you can use here. Stabilizing fluid, or separating agent, I'm sorry, lets you break down expensive ammo into regular parts to get strong chemical fluid, which you can then combine for enhanced bullets, grenade rounds, and yes, there is a grenade launcher in this game. But what I'm going to do right now, drop that, and there's not even any enemies I can show you how to fight using this new shotgun, and that's kind of an interesting thing. But the problem is, as the game goes on, instead of adding more exploration or more segments like what we just dealt with Jack in the previous parts, that all just gets traded for more combat. So I'm going to grab this broken shotgun, put you back, and now we get basically the best gun in the game. And this gun will one-shot enemies if you get them in the head. But this is ultimately the problem that Resident Evil 7 has, is that despite the detail, despite, you know, this chainsaw or Texas Chainsaw Massacre feel to it, the entire game just becomes more about combat. I think there's like a little, this is where we fight Marguerite later on. And there's a little nook around here for another secret, which I don't think I'm going to find without doing a little bit of digging here. But the problem is, as the game adds more and more molded for you to fight, it just becomes noise. Again, get enough shotgun shells and all of your worries for about 75 to 80% of the game are gone. Yes, you're going to fight heavier molded and multiple molded and super molded and any more combinations you can think of. But with my shotgun and even with grenade rounds later on, it's hard to be worried about it. So there should be a secret area somewhere around here. And again, for those of you watching this and played it, I want to ask you, do you feel that Resident Evil 7 is an example of survival horror or not? Because I don't think it is. The focus on guns and upgrading, the lack of puzzles and stuff like that, it just doesn't feel like a horror game. And one of the more interesting aspects is, like I said, there's just too many enemies. And I think what I would have liked to have seen developers do, would have been very courageous of them to try, would have been to massively cut down on the number of molded. Basically make every enemy in the game a one-off, unique, distinctive fight. Essentially, give me an entire residence of xenomorphs from Alien Isolation. Enemies that require you to do more than just shoot them in order to kill them. You can still have combat, but it's not as emphasized or rewarded. You have to think about how you fight these enemies, rather than just running around with a shotgun and going Duke Nukem on them. Now, there's not much else to show here. I mean, we could play through the game more, but I think we'll begin to wrap things up in the next few minutes. In fact, the Marguerite fight would be a really good example of what I would like. The fight itself is a non-linear, somewhat emergent situation with her in this one area as you hunt her down. And just imagine if that fight actually took place across the entire area that you fight her in, or her entire, I guess, quote-unquote residence. It would have been a lot more interesting to do something like that, rather than just being locked into these arena fights. And that's the biggest part about the combat or the boss fights in this game. They're all arena-based. It's not the same as having enemies like Mr. X or Nemesis engage the player in Resident Evil 2 and 3 respectively. Here, I know where Jack can spawn, I know what triggers him and what areas he can't go to. So it kind of, again, it downplays a lot of the threat. And the same goes for Marguerite in the next part. And Lucas, you don't even really fight. His area is more about his little, I guess, evil escape room, which isn't that bad of a part. But the problem is that the gameplay just never really goes anywhere in terms of evolving either the combat or the exploration. The second to last area of the game, the mines, you could pretty much put the Doom 2016 soundtrack into that fight, and it would just, you wouldn't miss a beat. That's just how much of a tonal shift it is. But with that said, I'm going to go back to the main menu and we're going to discuss my final thoughts on the game next. Alright, we're back at the main menu for my final thoughts. Resident Evil 7, I would definitely call it one of the best horror games of 2017. But in the same breath, that's kind of damning it with faint praise. The game tries to be both a reboot of the series and kind of a redemption play after the backlash of Resident Evil 6. And it does work in terms of, I guess, resetting the table for the franchise. But with that said, though, it still doesn't feel like it goes all the way back to Resident Evil 1 and the beginning of survival horror. There's just too much of a focus on generic combat and just a downplay of puzzles. And that's a really good point about this game, and I want to ask you, listening or watching this right now, can you remember a major gameplay section of Resident Evil 7, not counting the first quarter of the game, as in the whole engagement with Jack and up to his boss fight? Because there's just really not a lot to the gameplay that holds your attention. And as I said at the start, Resident Evil 7 is a game that I think it gets worse the further you play into it, not better. Partly because of the downplay of exploration, and again the emphasis of more and more in terms of combat. None of the bosses are all that interesting in terms of the general strategy of just shoot them in their glowy bit until they die. And that's even more so in the game's bonus DLC. The Not a Hero and End of Zoe are all combat centric. One of the best parts, I think one of the sole things that show some real sense of brilliance, was the banned footage area where you have to escape from a room while Marguerite is basically making sure you're not doing anything evil. That's a very interesting idea. I would love, again, to have that marriage between horror and adventure rather than horror and pure combat. But Resident Evil 7, like I said, I would still consider it to be a pretty good game. And where they go from here, though, is going to be very interesting. Are they going to try and go back to Resident Evil 4 through 6? Or will they try to double down on this? But if they do that, I'm just afraid they may just take the wrong lessons and add more in terms of combat and growth, and not focus on the puzzle solving. And it's kind of like a reverse problem that the indie horror scene has, where they focus all on the puzzle solving and none on the combat. Here, we have very little in terms of puzzle solving, and it's more of a focus on combat. And horror is just very hard to do right, because the line between action and horror is very thin, and once you cross over it, you can't get back. One of these days we should totally do a dissection of Alien Isolation and discuss more about that game, because I think that's where the Resident Evil 7 developers got some of their inspiration from. But with that said, we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much for watching this week's Dissecting Design. Tune in for daily discussions here and on Game Wisdom for design discussions and where we examine the art and science of games. And new Dissecting Design pieces will go up each Monday. But that's going to do it for Resident Evil 7. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time. Before we get to the credits, just a quick shout out and thank you to the supporters over on patreon.com/gwbicer. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back around 10 Eastern for regular streaming. If you'd like to suggest games for me to cover or topics to talk about, let me know in the comments below. For a collection of my writings as well as weekly podcasts on design, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the Game Wisdom Patreon, you can find us on there on patreon.com/gwbicer. $1 will get you into our private Discord channel where we talk game topics and more. $5 will get you voting privileges for any major event, including the Saturday Night Grab Bag, Patreon-funded goals, and more. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy more videos here on the Game Wisdom YouTube channel.